Thanks for joining us at xm.com for this Forex Preview. We'll be having a look at the Fed meeting coming up on Wednesday. I'm Christina Marujos. Joining me today is Senior Investment Analyst Rafi Boyajian. The Federal Reserve concludes its first policy meeting of the new year on Wednesday, Rafi, where no change in policy is expected. The announcement of a new fiscal stimulus package by the White House surely bought the central bank some time before springing into action. What might Fed Chair Powell signal for his central bank moving into 2021?
Well, Christina, on the face of it, this meeting is looking like a non-event. We're not expecting any changes, and it's highly likely that Chair Jerome Powell will simply reaffirm the central bank's pledge to maintain loose monetary policy until there's been substantial progress in the recovery. However, looking at what the future holds for the Fed, at least in 2021, it is looking like the Fed could be facing a growing dilemma. We've had some very mixed data recently. The jobs market and consumption slowed considerably at the end of 2020, but at the same time, now that we've started to see those stimulus checks being dispersed, of course, that's from the stimulus package that was approved in late December, there are signs that spending is picking up again. However, a lot of the outlook is dependent on more fiscal stimulus. We know that, of course, the new Biden administration is pushing for even bigger virus relief packages, but that first package being proposed by President Biden is already facing resistance in the Senate, and we've seen from the past that without fiscal support, growth does tend to stall. And then we've got the whole story with the vaccines, because although the US is doing somewhat better on the vaccine front than other countries, particularly European countries, the rollout there has also been somewhat slower than anticipated. And then, of course, we've got these new strains of the virus. We don't know just yet how effective the existing vaccines will be against these new strains. So it all comes down to how willing the Fed is to do more if needed. There are some varying views within the FOMC. We've heard recently from some hawks who've suggested that the Fed could begin to tighten at the end of this year, whereas Powell, who's more dovish, he's pushed back on this view. It's all going to come down to whether or not the Fed is going to remain dovish or whether it's going to come under pressure to begin to tighten should inflation begin to pick up, because we've already seen inflation expectations surge in recent weeks.
Which brings me to my next question, Rafi, because undoubtedly there is a lot of optimism in the markets. The latest economic data out of the US have been quite mixed, but there is another narrative unfolding at the same time, whether the vaccines can be effective against all new strains of COVID, as that could derail the timeline of reopening the economy. Stocks so far have been unfazed, but what about the dollar? Can it resume its safe haven status in such an environment?
Well, that's certainly an interesting question, Christina, because much of the good news around the stimulus and the vaccines have already been priced in. So how much more bearish can you get against the US dollar? Because if you look at the risks, they are mainly to the downside as far as risk sentiment is concerned, as far as the economic outlook is concerned, not just the US, but globally. That's the real danger, that markets may be underestimating some setbacks surrounding the vaccine rollouts and how much more stimulus we're going to get, because the Senate isn't too happy with Biden's big spending plans, so they might try to water down Biden's proposals on additional spending. So on the face of it, although there's not a lot that could trigger an upside reversal in the US dollar, but there doesn't seem to be much that could push the dollar even lower. And so given all these underlying risks, you certainly cannot rule out there could be sudden rush towards safe havens, including the US dollar.
Rafi, thank you for joining me today, and thank you for watching this Forex Preview here at xm.com.